Welcome back to RBP. It is me, RB, here again with Jared Borislow. J-Bone!
Can I just be P?
Yeah, you can be the P today. Jared, you ever have a nightmare, like a really bad nightmare that you still remember?
Yeah, so for a little bit there, I was training myself to lucid dream. And
Which is where you can, like, control your dreams?
Yeah, because I really just wanted to meet Rick Moranis, and I figured it wasn't going to happen in real life, so I'm like, okay.
That was the only way you could accomplish it.
Yeah. And then in the lucid dream, I could also shrink myself, like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, meet him and be like a whole novelty
Or
deal.
Ant-Man.
Or Ant-Man, which, yeah, I've heard that was...
Shout out Paul Rudd. That movie sucked. But
So-
whatever.
What part of that process involved, like, you know, really getting in tune with your dreams. And in the course of doing that, I twice had sleep paralysis.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's bad.
I stopped training myself to lucid dream after that. But one time I was laying in bed with my then girlfriend, now fiance, and I like woke up and she was there next to me, and all I can remember getting out is like, I was trying to like scream because I heard somebody out the door yelling that there was somebody being attacked in the backyard.
Yeah, that's the worst part of sleep paralysis is you can't really scream or make any noise. I've only had it one time, and I woke up it was like, I think I was sick and I had a fever when I was a kid, and often that's the case. Fever can contribute to some of these weird sleep disorienting things that happen. And I woke up and there was like an old woman approaching my bed.
I'm happy I never had that one.
And
That's La Llorona.
And I couldn't scream. Yeah, that was exactly what it was. But I'm going to give you some more nightmare fuel today.
Okay.
You're welcome. First question. Do you know the difference between a nightmare and a night terror?
I actually don't.
Take a shot at it. What's the difference?
I would guess that a nightmare... I honestly... I don't know.
You don't know. Okay, I'll tell you.
I've always thought they were synonyms, so
I'm here to tell you. From sleep.org, who is actually here to tell you, not me. The simple difference between a night terror and a nightmare is that a nightmare is a bad dream that typically occurs in the second half of the night. Daytime stresses such as a new routine or a major life change can contribute to nightmares, and while nightmares can make the sleeper experience feelings of anxiety, fear, distress, or terror, these feelings are not acted out physically. If you have nightmares, you probably dream of something frightening. The frightening image often wakes you, and you might even remember it upon waking. That's often the case, at least for a short while, right? Night terrors, on the other hand, do not necessarily coincide with sequenced images the way nightmares and dreams do. To others watching, if you're having a night terror, it may appear as if you are acting out a dream. You might punch, kick, scream, or show other signs of fear. Some people who experience night terrors may get out of bed and attempt to run for safety, exiting the door or the window, all while still sound asleep. However, when people who experience night terrors wake up, they typically do not remember the events of the night or what caused them at all. A night terror, also called a sleep terror, is a type of parasomnia, and parasomnias are sleep disorders where unwanted physical events occur during sleep. Other examples would be sleepwalking, sleep talking, and sleep paralysis. So, it turns out lots of little kids have these night terrors during their developmental jumps. And man, me and my girl did not get much sleep last night because her little girl, Toddler, had one of these night terrors, and holy hell, are they terrifying. For anybody who's a parent, you know your kid, especially growing up first 5 years of their life, really, for a lot of kids, sleep can be an inconsistent thing as a result of the growth and the developmental stages that they're going through mentally in their brains and their little bodies, right? So I've experienced that to a certain degree over the past couple of years, but this is a completely different animal. Like, I have never seen anything like it. I've never had a night terror. I've never been around anyone having a night terror, so I didn't know really that this was a thing, honestly, until literally last night, because the toddler was straight up, sitting up, screaming in her bed like I've never heard her scream, eyes open, staring directly at me while dead asleep. And then she just points to the corner of the room.
That's like some Exorcist or The Ring shit.
Dude, and you can't wake them up. This is the thing. People who have night terrors, it's not just little kids either, obviously. This is something that a lot of adults and adolescents can experience as well. Can't wake them up. If you try to wake them up out of the night terror, they get even more confused and disoriented, and it makes the entire process even worse. So really all you can do is just sit there and pray it stops quickly. It is truly some shit straight out of a horror movie. So both of us, me and my girlfriend, are obviously like upset. Like, what the fuck do we do? How long is this gonna last? I'm texting my friends like, yo, did any of your kids ever have night terrors? And I guess, not surprisingly, a few of them had. In fact, our legal counsel here at Bolen Media, my buddy Brandon, even sent me a video of his little girl screaming in the middle of the night, sitting up in her bed. It's footage from their like security camera in her room. And she just, all of a sudden, she just turns to the camera and goes, "Can you help me?" Staring right at it, dude.
That's so terrifying.
Right at it.
This is like that's like a found footage film.
Yes, it dead ass serious. The Exorcist was almost definitely inspired by some writer's kid having fucking wild night terrors, because they will like crawl around, thrash, kick their legs, and flail their arms. You can find videos on YouTube. It's insane.
I have an issue here, Ross.
Yeah.
We've long hypothesized that your signed copy of The Exorcist that we keep here in the studio was going to eventually cause some bad things to happen.
It could be that very VHS tape's fault. It's in the closet right over there. I might have to burn it after we finish recording this episode. They'll also have like full-on conversations with nobody there. Like you can hear them talking to someone. There is no one there.
Last night, my fiance was talking in her sleep, and I was so tired. Usually when that happens, I wake up because I want to like see what she's saying, so I can like make fun of her later.
Yeah.
She does the same thing to me. But I was so tired. I think it sounded like Latin or some shit.
Oh, that's not good.
I don't know.
That's the language of the devil. But, I mean, they start like whispering creepy shit. It is bonkers, J-Bone. I have seen some serious shit in my day. But, brother man, I was shook last night. It got to the point where I was like, that's it. I'm going to have to fight an evil spirit tonight. Like, I'm going to have to fuck up an entity. So I'm outside her door, like, whispering, like, come out here, you bitch-ass entity. Pick on somebody your own size. I eat pieces of shit like you for breakfast. Come at me, dog. And eventually, I just was like, okay, I'm just going to go sit in there, right? Like, I've been reading all these articles online. It's like, do not wake her up. Do not try to stir her from this slumber. It will make it significantly worse.
What was your weapon of choice for this specter?
My fucking bare fists and the power of God. So eventually I go sit in there next to her bed to make sure she like doesn't get hurt or anything because she's kicking, you know. And then something that I have legitimately seen in a horror movie happens. She's full on screaming, right? Like she's being attacked almost. Like mouth wide, all the way open, just like, ah!
Like jaw unhinged to the point where it's like further than it should
then
be.
In an instant, her mouth just slams shut.
Oh, God.
Okay? Just shuts in an instant. Her eyes open. She doesn't move an inch. She's laying on her side at this point and just staring at me. And after like 30 seconds, she goes, "Hi, Roro." Like nothing even happened. Like she has no fucking idea why I'm in her room. Like she's completely normal. Her facial expressions, everything about her face, completely different than it was 5 minutes prior when I was watching her have this thing. I mean, it absolutely melted my brain. Like I again, didn't really know what night terrors were. In fact, I've claimed to have had night terrors on this show before. When I was in college and I was having really bad anxiety, when I first started having panic attacks, in the first 2 weeks when I would try to go to sleep, I would fall asleep, but only for like a few seconds, and then I would wake up gasping like, like I wasn't breathing in my sleep, and it was horrifying, and I thought that was a night terror, and it is fucking not. Okay, this is a night terror.
If you had to guess what she was looking at, would you think it was a ghoul, specter, ghost, or demon?
What about a goblin? I don't know.
I don't think it was a goblin. Wait, Goblin Core? Has anybody in your neighborhood been practicing Goblin Core?
Goblin Core that could have popped into her mind. Not that I'm aware of, not that I've noticed, but it's entirely possible.
You need to check the backyards.
It is Austin, Texas.
Check the backyards, not the houses.
So yeah, I don't know. Like, what's the worst nightmare you've ever had? Like, did you ever have a recurring nightmare? One that you would have again and again?
No, usually when I have a nightmare that I wake up from, like I have I'm not scared of heights. I'm scared of falling from height.
I'm scared of heights.
Well, I'm scared of falling from height, right? If I'm in an airplane, I look down and I'm not scared that I'm going to fall out of the sky, But if I'm on a building balcony and it's 12 stories up, yeah, I'm terrified. I'm going to hug the wall.
Yeah, but what about like that building in Chicago? You can go up to that. It used to be called the
you're
Sears
gonna miss
Tower
me with
or
that
whatever.
one because I'm scared I would fall from that.
But you're inside of it and it's glass.
Yeah, but I don't trust
I didn't
that.
go either. When I went with my family, they all went to the top of that thing, and I was like, "I'll be down here smoking a J. Fuck y'all, peace."
Yeah,
like,
so-
there was no way I was going up there.
Usually when I wake up, it's like I'm falling in my dream, and like,
okay.
and then it's that crazy moment where I wake up and it feels like I hit the bed, and I'm like, oh fuck, shit.
Am I alive? Is my body okay?
Yeah, those are weird. Those are my usual nightmares.
I had this recurring nightmare that I recently tweeted about, actually, that my braces would become detached from my teeth. Like, because when you have braces as a kid, you got to be careful with them. Did you have braces?
Regrettably, yeah.
Yeah, I had them for 3.5 years. It sucked.
They jacked my teeth up. Worse. They
was
straightened
brutal.
them out, but I was so bad at brushing them with the little thing.
I'm sorry, you said it made your teeth worse?
Uh-huh.
Having braces.
I think okay, so my teeth were perfectly straight at the time, but I was getting it because I had like a small overbite or underbite.
Okay.
Right? And so they made, like, my teeth now I feel like are less straight because they were trying to correct the jaw, and also they are worst color because I couldn't brush them as well because of the braces.
What the hell? Your orthodontist might have been terrible.
I think my orthodontist was a massive quack. Dr. Jackson, you're going to be hearing from my lawyer.
Shouts to Dr. Gallerano in Houston, who I still remember your name because you were a great orthodontist, even though you tortured me for 3.5 years. But I still have this dream sometimes, and I got my braces off 17 years ago. Like, I had it relatively recently. Pretty much any time I'm experiencing a heightened level of anxiety or stress in my life, this thing will reappear. And it's fucking horrifying where, like, I think I'm going to swallow the metal, and it sucks. Anyway, I also used to have this one recurring nightmare. Also, it was in college that I was like, it was separation anxiety, I'm assuming. Because in the nightmare, a nuclear bomb was dropped on Houston, and I had to go, like, try to get my family out in some post-apocalyptic horror type shit.
You're just playing Fallout too much.
It was awful. I did play Fallout quite a bit in that same time frame, which almost definitely contributed to that. Anyway, once again, shout out to parents, because I had no idea all of the work y'all were putting in. Like, I couldn't sleep for shit after all this happened. So I ended up watching the first hour and a half of the new Kanye documentary, which we are talking about next. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our newest sponsor, Freshly. Fresh sponsor alert, it's Freshly. As somebody who regularly doesn't have time to cook, and even if I did, frankly, I don't know how to cook for shit, it's hard to find a fast, pre-cooked meal that isn't frozen and tasteless and highly processed and trash for my beautiful body. Food that's fast doesn't have to be fast food. Freshly offers quality meals without the hard work. Their meals are designed by nutritionists, cooked by chefs, then delivered fresh. Other meal deliveries need to be prepped and cooked, but Freshly is ready to eat in 3 minutes. So like on days where your schedule is bonkers or gets broken altogether, think about how nice it would be to just have a meal ready to go in the fridge, whether you're at home or back working in the office. Nobody wants to spend an hour cooking dinner after a rough day at work or an infuriating commute. At the end of a long day, takeout doesn't have to be your only option for an easy dinner. Whether it's for you or your whole family, Freshly gives you convenience, flavor, and nutrition. A lot of days when Jared and I have multiple podcasts to record, we don't have time to be waiting on a food delivery or sending one of the only 3-time employees we have here, counting us two, out on a food run. Today, for instance, I'm having one of my favorite Freshly meals for lunch right after we finish recording. The sticky sweet barbecue beef bowl with Korean-style sauce and market veggies. It's got juicy, diced up beef drizzled in their house-made, Korean-inspired barbecue sauce.
Okay, wait, I wanted that.
Yeah, that one's mine. Salty meets sweet with tamari soy sauce, toasted sesame, rice vinegar, garlic, ginger, honey, and coconut sap, plus market veggies, red onion, green bell pepper, tomato, and squash, served over fragrant basmati rice. Delicioso. Freshly has delicious, fresh, healthy meals. Get delicious chef-made, nutrient-packed meals delivered straight to your door. No cooking required, fresh and never frozen, ready to heat and enjoy in just 3 minutes. Getting food you love is incredibly easy. Use the Freshly website or app to find meals that fit your lifestyle with plans that work for your dietary needs, preferences, tastes, and family size. You can choose from over 50 nutritionist-designed entrees like their classic steak peppercorn, multi-serve sides like their masterful mac and cheese, or their new line of plant-based meals. Very nice. Freshly is affordable and convenient. Skip the grocery store and dirty dishes. Your meals arrive cooked and fresh every week. New meals are added weekly, so you're never stuck eating the same thing over and over. Stop stressing about dinner. Right now, Freshly is offering our customers $40 off your first 2 orders when you go to freshly.com/RBP. That's $40 off at FRESHLY, freshly.com/RBP. RBP.
Yeah, what I love is like you don't need to eat these for every meal if you don't want to, right? Like, maybe you go out to lunch a lot with your friends, whatever. You just have these ready for you whenever you want them in the fridge when you're like, oh my gosh, I work late tonight. I do not want to go drive out and get food. I want to have this ready waiting for me in 3 minutes.
Emergency freshly meals ready to go in the fridge, baby.
3 minutes.
Yeah. Jared, it is time again for docking with Ross. Look at me. I am the captain now. So I watched part 1 of 3, the only available part so far, on Netflix's new Jeen-yuhs, spelled JEEN-YUHS, which I'm not clear on why they went that direction yet.
I was hoping you as a Kanye fan could explain to me why it's called Jeen-yuhs. I would thought maybe like be like Jeen-yuhs.
Yeah, I really don't know. But it's a Kanye Trilogy, a documentary film directed by Kudi and Chaik about the life of artist, record producer, businessman, and fashion designer Kanye West. It's divided into 3 acts, with Act 1 titled Vision, which premiered at the 2022 Sundance Film Festival on January 23rd, 2022, and in theaters for one night only on February 10th, 2022, which honestly now I wish I had gone and seen. So Act 1 premiered on Netflix yesterday, on February 16th, 2022. The second and third acts will be released each consecutive week.
I love that they're
henceforth.
doing. I hate that streaming has made people release entire seasons at once. I miss the days of like, watch it, go talk to people about it for a week, watch it. Also, it's way easier for podcasting, Ross.
It is. And honestly, this is something that my co-host and I on Oysters, Clams, and Cockles, our TV and film podcast here at Bolen Media, saw coming a really long time ago. We started talking about how, similarly to the way that we got away from cable and into streaming, and then there's too many streaming services and we're ending up right back where we did with cable, the way these full season drops were occurring, it seemed like there was going to be a withdrawal from that as well eventually, because there is still the HBO strategy, right? Of like, on Sunday night, that new HBO show has a new episode or whatever. And I've always enjoyed that for the very reasons you just said. But back to our documentary that we're discussing today. On May 6, 2021, it was announced that Netflix had acquired a documentary about Kanye West with unseen archival footage from the past 2 decades, including his career in music and fashion, the death of his mother, Donda West, and his unsuccessful 2020 presidential campaign. Variety reported that Netflix acquired the documentary for around $30 million. Okay, so when that news came out last year, the hype started to build, but it was really difficult to tell, because you know how it is. A lot of the times with celebrity documentaries like this, it'll come down to them getting final say on Final Cut or whatever, and with Kanye and the things that he has done over the course of his career, you just never really know if things are going to come out or not, or when.
Yeah, an example of that is the Michael Schumacher documentary, which Netflix also has, where it's so obvious after you watch. It's a really good documentary, and it has so much unseen footage. It is so obvious that the family had final say on every single thing that went in there.
Right.
They don't even. The whole big thing at the end of it is Michael Schumacher, most prolific Formula One driver of all time, got his, he hit his head on a rock skiing, and now nobody knows in what state of health he's in. He's still alive, but he's believed to be in a vegetative state,
right?
Probably never going to be able to recover. But there's this idea that the family doesn't say anything, so maybe he is, and you don't get any more information on that.
It also reminds me of the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan one, where Jordan was almost entirely in charge of what got to stay or go from the documentary. So of course he made himself look as good as he could, and some of his former teammates, like Scottie Pippen mostly, were like, "What the fuck? Screw you, Mike." So I'm going to read a little bit from the LA Times. Netflix's intimate and often heartbreaking docuseries Jeen-yuhs Kanye Trilogy chronicles the impressive rise and later stumbles of West, piecing together more than 21 years' worth of footage shot by the artist's friends and documentarians, co-directors Clarence Cootie Simmons and Chaik Oza. So let me start right there. First of all, episode 1 is an hour and 29 minutes, and it opens up in the Dominican Republic in 2020 with footage of Kanye spewing absolute gibberish on the microphone. Some of it is, it resembles some of the lyrics that he's had in a couple of his most recent albums, but it's just nonsense. It doesn't even it's like he's freestyling, but it's awful. That's the only way to put it. It's fucking terrible. And that was very intentional, because this entire thing really is documenting the rise and fall, in a way, of probably the most prolific hip-hop artist in history. So Cootie Simmons is this guy that when Kanye was 21 years old, he became aware of Kanye and saw potential and was hoping to make like a Hoop Dreams style documentary about Kanye West.
What is Hoop Dreams?
We don't have time to get into that. But the point is, this dude, that's like 20 years ago, or 21 years ago, rather. So it would be like almost if 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when I started my career in media, if somebody had been like, this guy's going to be a star, I need to film as much of his life as I possibly can so that down the road, when he's the biggest media personality in the world, everybody can see how that happened. And we all just got lucky that Cootie had that dream. And it is absolutely fucking insane watching 20 years ago Kanye West like making his way to the point where he could be the Kanye that he is today. It's a 4-hour plus docuseries overall with all 3 episodes. They're released in 3 parts over the next 3 weeks. The first act, Vision, released Wednesday. It says in the LA Times, is not a polished Kanye spectacle. Cootie and Shike, as they're credited, have said that West was in the loop during the production process, but this is not a Ye-approved final cut. And according to the LA Times, that's precisely why it's worth watching. Now, I can't speak to how much it isn't the final cut based on Act 1 alone, although I will say there are certainly a lot of very humanizing, humbling moments that are shared with us from this man's it's like personal moments of his life that we otherwise never would have seen. It's crazy. So Act 1 is also like a who's who of late 90s hip-hop legends, but like behind the scenes. You've got Common, Rhymefest, Mace, Talib Kweli, Mos Def, Damon Dash, Jermaine Dupri, Memphis Bleak, Jay-Z. I mean, it is, if you love rap or hip-hop or have been a fan for any amount of time, really, this is a fascinating thing to watch, even if you're not into Kanye himself, because you can really see how the industry moves. Like, one of the things that is very apparent throughout Act 1 is that this guy crushed production in a way that nobody had really ever seen before. And almost immediately when he finds success, people are trying to tear him down. And then on top of that, he can't get into the studio as a rapper. Nobody will take him seriously at all. They don't even, it's almost like they're looking at him going, all right, this cat is the greatest producer going right now. If we let him be a rapper too, no one man should have all that power. Like that kind of like, it's like, it'd be like if somebody came in here and was like as good as I am behind the microphone, but could also do everything else that I can't do, all the production stuff, all the marketing stuff, and then I just like suppress that person because I didn't want them to take my spot. That's what it feels like when he's trying to get in with Rockefeller Records and with some of these other labels that he was talking to in New York City. It's almost like they were afraid of his talent, like or the potential that would come with what he was trying to do.
Was he already a good producer?
Yes.
Okay.
Like he produced half the Blueprint, which is arguably Jay-Z's best work, and he still couldn't get the guys at Rockefeller to sign him to a rap deal. Like he was just a producer, and nobody wanted to see a producer rapper. That was like a very weird element of hip hop in the 90s where they didn't want it. They were shunning him for trying to be that guy.
When you say producer, I always wonder this. Is he like the one on the board, like moving the stuff around?
On the
Up,
board,
down.
moving the stuff around, making all the different samples, mixing it, doing all that shit. Yeah, just nothing to do with the actual lyrics that are laid on the track. Well, that's not even true. Oftentimes, he would work kind of cohesively with the rapper. Yeah, you should try this, or maybe this line instead of that one, or whatever, and helping them shape the track, in which case then he would get a writer's credit as well. One of the funniest things about the doc is that anytime he goes to like spit on a track or show somebody his rapping abilities, he has to take out his retainers, because he has retainers in, like top and bottom retainers, which is just fucking hilarious. Like at one point he's in a car with Talib Kweli and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna take out my, he tells him before he does it, I'm gonna take out my retainers right now because I gotta look good for the cameras. And it's like he didn't want to just do it and have Talib be like, what the fuck did you just take out of your mouth, bro? He wanted to explain it beforehand because that's how self-conscious he was about his retainers. So he first moves out. He's from Chicago, obviously, born and raised in Chicago, or not born in Chicago, but they moved to Chicago when he was very young, him and his mother, Donda. And he can't get any type of momentum going as a rapper from when he's in Chi-Town. So he moves out to New York City with like to make it big and get a record deal as a rapper, and that's when he's not taken seriously by literally anyone. Jay-Z, Dame Dash, Big, none of them dudes. With the exception of Mos Def and Talib Kweli, probably two of the most famous backpack rappers ever, alongside Common. And those dudes clearly saw all of his potential from the get-go. Like, you can see it in their eyes, and anytime he's spitting in front of them, they're like, this dude is fucking goated, like he's gonna do crazy shit with his career. But everybody else is a total dickbag to him. Like, there's a scene where Kanye raps the song Two Words with Mos Def, and like, by the way, Wood Harris is in the room with him, who's also known as Avon Barksdale from The Wire, and is just one of the most famous actors from that time period. And he does his 2 words verse, and this is one of the clips that got shared on social media a lot leading up to the release of the documentary, because it's just fucking magical to watch him spit this whole verse. And like, Wood Harris is sitting there, like, clearly has no idea who Kanye is and is just in awe of him, like shaking his head, looking at the camera like, this dude is another level. And when he's done with his verse, Mos Def is like freaking out, just like, dude, this is unbelievable. So there's a lot of footage like that where you get these behind the scenes moments of Kanye pre-record deal, pre-being taken seriously by anyone other than these dudes in the room as a rapper. And of course, he's got his friends and the documentarian who believe in him and all that. But it's like, nobody cares at all. At one point, he runs up in the Rockefeller offices in New York City, and he plays the song All Falls Down, which you admitted to not remembering last week, or last episode rather, and which is really the main song utilized in this part 1, like, come up of Kanye documentary episode. He plays All Falls Down, which became later a huge hit and one of my favorite Kanye songs ever, for 2 separate A&Rs, who are the people in the recording label who are deciding which talent is good enough to be signed. And it's 2 different females, and one of them's named Shaka that he plays it for. And I remember her name distinctly because he actually calls her out on one of his records later in his career for not taking him seriously when he was in that room. And man, he plays this song for him, and he's sitting there like spitting it for her over the song playing. And the chick just couldn't even pretend to give a shit about the song or that he's there at all. Like, it's like they're annoyed that he's busted into their office playing this song, which would later be blasted all over the radios and get, tens of millions of sales or whatever. And after he plays that song for her, like, she literally doesn't even say anything. And somebody else comes in and starts talking to her, and he just takes his cassette out of the player, the CD out of the player, and just walks out of the room. There is no further conversation. She's not like, man, I want to hear that again. Nothing. So he goes into another A&R's office, and he does the exact same thing. And while she's clearly a little more into it, she's mostly laughing at him. Like, he has a bunch of these clever, witty, funny bars that people were not really getting away with at that point. He was talking about things that people were not talking about on rap songs, like way more the lifestyle and struggles of black people in America than necessarily like the gangster shit that people wanted to hear that they knew was going to sell. He was just against the grain, like in pretty much every way in terms of the mainstream. And Rockefeller was seen as like this hardcore record label helmed by Jay-Z with all these gangster dudes underneath him, like they didn't play with backpack rap or conscious rap, as it was called. So this chick in the middle of the verse like turns to somebody else in the room and she's like, did you hear what he just said? And is like missing other bars that are coming out, like as she's now talking to this person, kind of laughing at Kanye. Same exact thing happens. Song ends. She doesn't give a shit, doesn't say a word to him. Somebody else comes in the room and starts a conversation. He takes his CD out and walks out. And it's heartbreaking because you see literally the industry like turning its back on him. Like, no, sorry, dude, just keep making us beats. Just keep making us beats. And if you think about it from a structural standpoint, if Rockefeller exists as a label and Jay-Z's at the top and then there's like, let's say 10, 15 other rappers underneath him, what they wanted was to make sure that this guy was just making them as many beats as possible so that all those people could have as many hit songs as possible. This dude had just produced half the blueprint. And that's what they wanted him to do. So the second that he's doing rap, guess who's going to get all the best beats? Kanye. He's going to keep them for himself, which affects everybody else in the building. And they're trying to avoid that, which is obviously selfish, fucked up, and one of the major issues with just the music industry as a whole. That's not even specific to rap. But it was worse in the 90s. It's gotten a lot better since streaming has kind of broke the mold. And guys like Chance the Rapper have just like made their way to the A-list without even having a label, without even having a record deal. And then he got one down the line. But things have changed. But back then, man, it was a fucking mess. And you can really see how, like, I mean, we all know what this dude has done since and how many records he's sold since. And even that guy people were like, yeah, shut the fuck up and get back behind the soundboards, because they didn't want him getting out of his lane. They wouldn't even give him an ear to hear. Like, it's truly mind-blowing watching Kanye desperately attempt to get his foot in the door, and they just keep slamming it on him over and over and over, and playing All Falls Down pretty much like a close to completed version of it, like almost the version that made The College Dropout, which is his first album. That's like a multi-platinum record that he won a fucking Grammy for, and they won't even give him the time of day. And he's also taking out his retainers and shit like as he's going to start spitting for these A&Rs and stuff. But so you get a lot of moments like that where you're seeing him attempt to get signed and people being like, sorry, we just don't see it. At one point, one of the strangest moments of part one, he goes and sits in a studio session with Scarface, who has been a guest on the Ross Bolen podcast. If you want to listen to the interview I did with Scarface while he was on the golf course, it's pretty fucking hilarious. Just Google the Ross Bolen podcast, Scarface.
Also, at the end of the episode, if you listen all the way to the end of the outro music, Scarface has a cameo.
Go low, baby. And so Kanye is looking to get a feature from Face because he thinks that will give him some legitimacy and get Rockefeller to sign him. He needs them to take him more seriously. He thinks if he can get Scarface on a track, then perhaps, that will work out in his favor. And at that point, he had already done another Scarface and Jay-Z song called Guess Who's Back, where apparently Scarface and Hove were in the studio, and Kanye walked in, and they didn't have a beat to do their song over, and he provided them with the Guess Who's Back beat. And so he already had a pre-existing relationship with Scarface, is the point. And by the way, I would add, in the documentary, Scarface is absolutely in his Bill Chungus phase. The man is about 100 pounds more than he is now. He looks nothing like the Scarface you would see today if you Googled him and looked up what he looks like in 2022. It is crazy how much bigger he was. But he goes in there, and he's looking to get this feature, and he plays him, I think, Jesus Walks, and then for sure plays him the beat to Family Business. And he plays Jesus Walks, and Scarface is kind of like sitting there, and you can tell he thinks it's hard, but he's got his pen and his pad in front of him, and he can't come up with anything. Like, he can't really, like, he seems kind of like depressed almost, and Face has dealt with a lot of mental health issues, so he very well may have been depressed in that moment. I have no idea what was going on in his personal life, but he seems like he's either depressed or intimidated by the situation, and he just goes like, nah, man, play me something else. And so he starts to put on this song Family Business, and then Face sees him start to try to like mouth some words, and Face is like, hold up, do you already have lyrics written for this? I want to hear you spit. So Kanye has to take out his retainers and set them down on the fucking counter, and Scarface is like, what the fuck are those? He's like, bro, those were all up in your mouth and shit. You can't be taking those out and just setting them down on my counter. Like, are you out of your mind? Like, giving him shit. And Kanye just kind of blows him off and then starts to spit the song. And by the end of his verse, Scarface goes, damn, incredible. Like, he's blown away by the dude's lyrical talent. But then, in a really weird move, he basically, he's like, what else you got? Play me something else. And Kanye's like, those are the only two that I brought in. Which one do you want me to put on a CD? Asking him, which one do you want to lay a guest verse for me on? Which one do you want to feature on? And Scarface goes, it don't even matter, and just walks out without really saying anything else. Like, he's not going to do a verse is the point. And he ends up not doing a verse. But in my read, it was almost like Face saw Kanye, heard his beats, and Scarface is one of the few producer rappers to ever find success in that lane. And he was the opposite, where he wasn't given his respect or his due credit as a producer. He was always seen as a rapper. And he helped produce a lot of his best tracks and most famous tracks ever. But even on some of those, he's not listed as a producer, just the rapper or lyricist. So I think he was looking at Kanye and going, well, I'm done. This guy is doing it, and I am fucked and washed. And like, in all fairness, he was on the back half of his career. Face had already been a hip-hop legend in his own regard for like a decade at that point. He was kind of an old head, but you could see almost like the light leaving his eyes. Like, he was like, be like if, you thought you were the best basketball player in the world, and then LeBron James came in and just like stunted all over you, and you just go home and cry. That was almost the vibe that I got. But Kanye was so uplifted by Face giving him credit as a lyricist and a rapper and saying like incredible, that it gave him the boost and the confidence he needed to go back to New York City and try even harder to get a record deal. It's just an incredible fucking piece of footage to see. Or even when they walk out, Kanye turns to Cudi, whatever, and he's like, damn, that was some sick footage you just got.
I wish you could interview Scarface again and ask him about this exchange.
I'm going to try to. I'm serious, because I want to know what was going through his mind. I want to know if it's that he felt defeated, or maybe he was just having a fucked up day or something. It's impossible to tell. But regardless, he's just another person who just kind of leaves the dude hanging, pushes him aside, like, nah, I don't want to fuck with this or fuck with you, or like, these beats are too different or too wild. They sound too different than what I'm used to rapping on. I don't think I can come with anything for this. He even says, like, this one's too hard for me. And he doesn't mean hard like street hard. He means like, this is a difficult beat for me to flow over. But shit is wild. So in the end, the most fascinating aspect amongst all the fascinating aspects of the first hour and a half of this thing is getting to see behind the scenes footage of Kanye's relationship with his now late mother, Donda, which is obviously what his most recent album was named after, and his one dropping 2/22/22 allegedly will be called Donda 2, right? Which will be executive produced by Future for some reason. Back to the LA Times for a moment. The rapper's relationship with his mom is central to the docuseries. She's often shown by his side, lifting his spirits while keeping him grounded. They're in her apartment, and West's career is just taking off when she advises him. You've got a lot of confidence, and you come off a little arrogant, even though you're humble. He is silent, taking in every word. Back to her quote, but it'd be important to remember to stand on the ground, she continues. That way you can be in the air at the same time. That's what I think it means when they say a giant may look in the mirror and see nothing, but everyone else sees the giant. It's like she could tell early on his ego was going to be the main thing he had to combat, and she was trying to give him bits of advice without sort of, infringing on his whole persona that maybe he would take in. And what you end up figuring out just in the first hour and a half alone, with pretty limited amounts of Donda footage, is that this woman was very clearly his rock. Like, that was who kept him in line. That was who kept him on track and was holding him together. And then without her, he's going to get lost, right?
Yeah, I'm getting major Spider-Man and his uncle, like, with great power
it was
great
like
responsibility vibes.
That was a lot what it was like, man. It was sort of amazing just to see. There was a scene where he's gone back to his mom's apartment, the same one they're talking about, and Cootie is with. First of all, he knocks on the door, does not call beforehand, doesn't have his own key because he left it wherever he's supposed to have grabbed it. And you can tell it's like kind of late at night, and she comes and answers, and he's like, "Hi, Mom, I'm here, and I got company with me." And like the documentarians just come in right behind him, and she's completely unfazed. She like asks everybody their name, then she sits down and starts talking to Kanye as if they're not even fucking there, the documentarians. Like, she is totally unfazed by the cameras. I mean, you can immediately see where he got all of his bravado. And then there's this crazy moment where she's like, you know what? I always liked that one song you used to do, and this is something we haven't heard any footage from or seen any footage of or heard any of the bars from up until that point. And she starts rapping what was clearly one of the first songs he ever wrote off the top. Like, she remembers every bar. She gets like 17 bars in before she slips and has to get him to help her, and then even he can't remember some of it. It's just this, like, she could have been a fucking rapper. Donda could have been a fucking rapper. Like, dead ass serious. She's hitting every line. It was just crazy to see. And it's clearly like him at his infancy as a rapper, because the bars are kind of trash compared to what you've heard in all the songs that they've shown in the documentary and in All Falls Down and the College Dropout and all that shit. But you see how his mom was like everything to him, man. Like everything to him. And she was the only person, and this is after you've been shown all these fucking people blowing him off or trying to use him because he's gotten some level of success as a producer. Now he's charging $40,000, $50,000 a beat. Also of note, he hadn't bought himself a house. He hadn't bought himself a new car, but he's wearing like a $20,000 chain. And he kept living like that. Like, almost as a motivator. He was spending all the money that came in, living beat to beat, paycheck to paycheck, sort of, on purpose, because he didn't want to settle down. He didn't want to stop being as hungry as he was. And because he had this weird element that most rappers don't have to deal with, which is that he found great success as a producer beforehand, he was not broke. So it didn't make sense to him to rap about all the same things that everybody else rapped about, like moving weight in the street or whatever, or gangbanging, or like busting up in people's houses and taking their shit or killing people. And he even says at one point, I don't think anybody would believe me if I said I was going to come take their life. So that can't be my angle, which is what most, again, early 90s, late 80s hip-hop was like a lot of fucking hardcore gangster shit. Like, you think of like NWA or Scarface and the Ghetto Boys. Like, those were hard-ass lyrics. Kanye was the backpack guy, the conscious rapper. And he brought this totally new element to the game that, honestly, as somebody who's been listening to rap for, 20 years now, I had almost forgotten that this was a thing, that there was a pre-Kanye West version of hip-hop. He changed that fucking entire genre more than anybody gives him even close to the right amount of credit for. And the documentary alone, just this first part, has me completely back in on the Kanye train, where I'm like, all right, because you're watching him like pre-mental health issues, bro. Like, he's clearly a weird cat and extremely creative and talented, but he's not the dude I've seen on stage rambling for 30 minutes about how Walt Disney never had a bad bitch like Kim Kardashian and saying all this crazy shit that makes people think that he's crazy. It's before his mom died. It's before shit hit the fan. And it is one of the most magical and fascinating things I have ever watched in my life. As a guy who's admittedly a big-time Kanye fan and has been for a long time, seeing the growth is nuts. This is before the shoes, before college dropout, before any of that shit. The big kind of apex of the first part of Act 1 of Vision is that he finally executes enough on that vision to get that deal with Rockefeller Records. And Jay-Z brings him up on stage in Chicago, packed stadium, and lets him like announce to the city that he's been signed to Rockefeller. And then one of the dudes comes up behind him and like puts the Rockefeller chain on him. And I just got like chills through my whole body. Like, holy shit. You can tell Jay-Z doesn't even really know this dude yet. Like, these guys go on to make Watch the Throne together. And this is before any of that relationship had really formed the way that it needed to for that record to be made, which is just, it's like watching history, man. Like, there's just not that many people that you could tell me, hey, we got 20 years of footage of this dude, that I'm like, holy shit, you have 20 years of footage of this dude? I cannot wait to watch. And he is certainly one of the people that would fall into that box, and my God, does it deliver. And it's like almost understated. Like, they are not having to tell you, this is history you were watching. Because you're sitting there watching it going, my fucking God, this is like moments that changed the whole course of hip-hop in the United States. Really like consumerism in the United States in a lot of ways. Just like, as he would put it, shifted the paradigm in a lot of ways. And it's something else, man. It's something else to behold. So the next two parts drop February 23rd and March 2nd, respectively.
You would think they would have had, respectfully, you would think they would have had the entire like docuseries done by the time Donda 2 came out, wouldn't you?
So one of the things you see through the course of Act 1 is just why Donda, the first part, was what it was. You know the house that he built so that him and Lil Baby and Marilyn Manson could stand up there and piss everyone off? You see that house. Him and his mom go back to the house he grew up in Chicago, and it is exactly what he built in that fucking stadium.
Is Marilyn Manson and DaBaby there?
Marilyn Manson and DaBaby were, they were missing.
DaBaby was actually a baby
at that point. Yeah, he was. And that's also the same house that I believe he will be lighting on fire for Donda 2. All the imagery I've seen for Donda 2 so far is that house like in flames. Like he's going to burn it all down and probably skeet inside of it, if I had to guess.
Skeet? Oh, okay, I got it.
Which, here's one of the things that struck me, man, is watching this, it makes me wonder if he watched this, would it help him? Like, would it get him back to where he needs to be mentally and grounded? And I think at least partially the answer is yes. So that's something I cannot wait to see, is his thoughts on Jeen-yuhs Kanye Trilogy and what he thinks about his own portrayal. Because he definitely isn't the same dude. It's not the same guy. Like, that guy is dead and died with his mom. And now we're left with this, like, broken fucking half version of Kanye doing all this crazy gospel shit and just rattling off insane bars in 2020. And where the fuck was he? What'd I say at the beginning? It's the Dominican Republic, like with a bunch of random dudes around him. It's just bizarre.
By the way, have you heard the rumor about South by?
No.
So apparently Republic Square, which is downtown, it's like a big square. It's a whole city block of downtown. It's like a park. Apparently there's been a permit for a gospel service there.
Oh. I would have to assume that would be a Sunday service with Kanye West.
during South by. Like, who else? Who else
Yeah.
would do that? Because it's just like, oh, it's not as good as it could be. You know.
That sounds like it'll be the hardest thing to get into in 2022. South by Southwest, the music festival in Austin, is such a nightmare now. It really is. If you haven't
it's
been down
bad.
here in the last 5-10 years, really, it is not what it once was. Much like Kanye is not what he once was. But I mean, you see flashes of this dude. Like watching the documentary Act One, you see the little bits and pieces of him that are still there, but they're so covered in all this other bullshit and the Kardashians and all that, which apparently they do get into. And one of the things that is going to be noticeably missing from these 3 acts is the creation of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, because apparently at that point, Cudi and Kanye, I keep wanting to say Cudi like Kid Cudi, Cudi and Kanye have had like some kind of falling out. So there's going to be turmoil even with the documentary makers. And this dude, Cudi, walked away from like his whole life. Like he was trying to become a stand-up comedian and do his own thing. And then he saw Kanye and went, nope, this is it. Which makes me wonder how much of that $30 million that he gets from Netflix, if he's the one that spent 20 years making this, like, did he get his money's worth, is another question that I still have. And I guess will probably be answered in some way, shape, or form over the next 2 acts. Couldn't more highly recommend this if you like music at all. Again, do not have to be a Kanye fan. In fact, it's probably better for Kanye haters to watch because you'll see sort of why he became the monster you think he is, right? But man, I was just like laying. At one point, it was 45 minutes left, and I was like, okay, I could go to sleep right now. I'm very tired, but I couldn't stop. Like that's how hooked in I was. It has been a minute since I watched anything, TV show, movie, fiction, nonfiction, that had me drawn in like that, where I was just like, this is fucking insane.
Were you
cannot
checking your
believe
phone?
this. No, I was totally fucking undistracted in the room by myself, just fucking couldn't stop, man. It was nuts. Thank God I had my Felix Gray glasses.
Oh God, yeah, your eyes would be destroyed.
They would. And today's episode is, guess what? Brought to you by Felix Gray Glasses. 5 years ago, Felix Gray set out to create eyewear that could improve daily screen time, and since then, Felix Gray has been on a mission to create a better relationship with technology. Felix Gray lenses filter 15 times more blue light that can make screen time tough on eyes and disruptive to sleep. I've been working on the internet for over a decade now, spending like 10 hours a day staring at screens. My eyes get worn the hell out. And when I'm done with work, I like to relax by watching my favorite shows and movies and documentaries about Kanye West and gaming, all of which involve screens. So a few years ago when I was introduced to Felix Gray, everything changed. These glasses are the quality of designer frames. This isn't some cheap blue light coating painted over them that's going to chip off. Never happens. No chipping, no cheapness. Just incredible quality designer frames that are stylish and functional as they protect your eyes from all the blue light that the screens we all rely upon emit. There is no cutting back on screen time if you're like me, but you can do your eyes a solid and get yourself some Felix Grays to get relief from those headaches or dry eyes, blurry vision, what have you, that occurs over the course of your workday. I've got like 6 pairs now. My favorite frames for y'all to check out are the Faraday frames, the Nash, and the West. Start 2022 on the right foot with Felix Gray. Use our URL, felixgrayglasses.com/RBP to support the show and get free shipping, free exchanges, and free returns. They've got non-prescription and prescription glasses available, the nighttime glasses that help you wind down for sleep. Check all those out now at felixgrayglasses.com/RBP. That's FELIXGRAY glasses.com/RBP. Free shipping, free returns, free exchanges at felixgrayglasses.com/RBP. So last night before I started the Kanye doc, I was flipping around before it hit me like, holy shit, didn't part 1 of that Kanye West documentary come out? And I'm trying to find something to watch that's not going to be scary because I've just endured this horrifying event. And I saw 8 Mile as an option. And I was like, yeah, you know what? 8 Mile is low-key a good going-to-sleep movie. Like, nobody dies. Nothing scary happens, really. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, frankly, it's shocking that no one dies in 8 Mile, so I tweeted that. And one of our listeners, Nick, responded, seems like a good discussion. Movies where death should have occurred more. Mine is the Lord of the Rings trilogy, a suicide mission where 8 of 9 Fellowship members survive. And then another listener, Quatch, chimed in, Merry and Pippin had no business making it through. And that is definitely a great example of a movie where more people should have fucking died. 8 of the 9? That is a legit fucking percentage right there.
That's too many.
It's too many.
And don't tell me who died. I plan to eventually,
get around to Lord of the Rings.
Uh-huh.
Have you really never seen Lord of the Rings?
I saw the first one.
Dude, that is amazing. You have the most bizarre method for picking what you'll watch out of maybe anyone I've ever known. And before you, Barrett held that crown, who ironically is my co-host on Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. So my movie that I'm going to pick for where more people should have died, other than 8 Mile, where certainly at least Cheddar Bob should have died. We'll get to that in a minute, though. My movie that I'm picking for more people should have died is Saving Private Ryan, because at the very fucking least, they should have killed Upham.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this ad nauseum.
I mean, the German guy who just killed the Jewish guy, or stabbing him in the heart, he literally walks by Upham and is like, this guy is such a pussy. Not even going to
Just
kill
going to
him.
let him go, like letting a fish back into the water after you've caught it.
Yeah.
You should have sawed his head off right there for all of us to watch.
It's honestly worse than... I'd rather, if I'm Upham, you kill me, so it's not like...
You have to live with that shit.
Yeah.
The shame and the fucking guilt of being the world's biggest clown at war. Anyway.
But I feel like a lot of people did die in Saving Private Ryan, but Upham didn't, so it's kind of like makes the whole thing null.
But I'm talking about like
You want Vin Diesel?
Vin Diesel definitely went out in a very sad way.
Did he get sniped?
Yeah. And then you have to watch him bleed out for like 10 minutes while there's just nonstop gunfire and screaming. It's one of the most stressful scenes
And German.
of any movie. Yeah, and a lot of German screaming too. And he was just trying to save like some kids in a half blown out building or whatever. Poor Vin Diesel.
He's doing pretty good for himself. He's like a rapper.
Is he Groot?
He is Groot.
He is Groot. And very wealthy. And now making music in tribute to Paul Walker, which is not great.
As you know, I'm not a big movie guy. I prefer a nice documentary instead. Now, there are documentaries where people should have died. I will say.
Yeah, but they're like what? Like what is in your mind right now?
I'm very shocked nobody has died during the filming of a Jackass movie.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good choice right there. They do some really fucked up shit, especially in the first couple. I haven't seen the most recent one, but man, there are moments where you're like, how did they get all of this footage without anybody here like suffering a near life-ending injury at the very least?
Like I'm thinking like somebody falls back. Oh, they're walking into a room and a massive oversized hand on a spring slaps them in the face at 100 miles an hour and they fall back and hit their head on a fucking rock and die.
Dude, it was just announced. Bob Saget, when he passed away, it turns out he hit his head really hard, was like, fuck, that hurt, went to sleep, and died.
Are you serious?
Yes, his family released this information. Also, he had COVID-19, but dead serious. He had COVID, he hits his fucking head really hard, he goes to sleep, he never wakes up.
Are they going to count that as a COVID death?
Probably. We all know the numbers are a little funky. One way or the other, no matter which side you're on, the numbers are a little funky.
We need to stop counting in Michigan and keep counting in Arizona.
Oh, yeah, we've lost our way with counting in the United States of late, but maybe one day soon we'll get
We need
back.
to go back to Sesame Street.
We do.
One.
One COVID death. Two COVID deaths. Also, I just want to go back to 8 Mile very quickly. Just a ridiculous film. Ridiculous movie. It is autobiographical for the most part about Eminem, but they were like, no, we don't want to have the character's name be Marshall Mathers or the rapper's name be Eminem. How about Jimmy Smith and we'll make his rap name B-Rabbit, like Bunny Rabbit.
Is Lose Yourself a song from 8 Mile?
Yes, from the soundtrack.
And that's his most famous song. His most famous song is from his movie.
Okay, it's up there with his most famous songs, but the reasons he performed it at the Super Bowl halftime show have a lot more to do with the fact that most of his other songs are about murdering his ex-wife or like, sticking nails through each of his eyeballs or whatever he says in Hi, My Name Is. Like a lot of his music is inappropriate for the mainstream Super Bowl halftime show. That song was made for this film and was more Hollywood, right? So it had all of the things you need for it to be okay.
You should have sang Fack.
Yeah. There are so many good examples of Eminem songs that you're just like, how is this even a thing that got recorded?
And then instead of, people were pissed that there wasn't like a hologram of Tupac.
Right.
We should have got a hologram of a gerbil going up Eminem's ass.
Everybody knows, by the way, that I am staunchly against these hologram performances and trying to bring back people from the dead. And that if Jared and I die in some horrifying plane crash and you assholes turn us into holograms that sit here and podcast with each other in the metaverse or whatever, I'm going to come back and haunt you like whatever is haunting the toddler currently as she has these fucking night terrors.
I would love, though, like now we're talking about AI, if somebody could do one of those things where they go, I put 5,000 hours of Jared and Ross talking on podcasts into an AI thing, and then it like produces a fake podcast
just puts out the episodes with what it would be like. Yeah.
Even if somebody could just give me like a 1-page script.
Oh, we'll read the whole thing on here.
We will read the entire thing. If you're somebody who's an AI person and an AI nerd,
Get it done.
please, we will just download all of our audio, put it in the AI thing, and I would love to read the script for the AI generated RBP episode.
I might even pay you for that if it ends up well enough for us to use. Good enough for us to use? I didn't sleep last night.
I don't know.
All right, so more facts from 8 Mile. His friend Cheddar Bob shoots himself right in the dick. Also, who picks Cheddar Bob as a name?
Cheddar Bob.
In the same way, like, who picks B Rabbit? Like, what the hell? But that guy should have died. Absolutely should have been a death right there.
From a dick shooting?
I mean, from shooting yourself in the dick, you probably are stupid enough to get got in some other way, shape, or form. He does seem to survive the dick shooting, though. Let's see. Papa Doc, the main villain in the movie, actually went to a private school, and that ends up being his downfall. I went to a private school, and it hasn't ended up being my downfall yet, but I'm also not trying to freestyle rap at the shelter.
They call you Papa Doc.
Shh. Brittany Murphy, her character is just like an industry groupie. Like she's just kind of a slut. Like it's fucked up. Like they just don't really give her character much more substance than she's like fucking people, and that upsets Eminem. I'm sorry, Jimmy Smith, who is taken by her in some way, shape, or form. That's another bad loss there.
I'm also
Brittany
concerned why they decided to go with a name so close to Jimmy Smith's.
I really couldn't tell you. It's beyond me.
Can we please have gotten? Can somebody please make 8 Mile again more AI?
Yeah,
deep fake Jimmy Smith's face
over Eminem.
Over Eminem.
Yeah. By the way, Brittany Murphy, just an example of the many talented people that are in this film that prove that Eminem is actually a good actor. I read a thing the other day that he was actually considered to be Mad Max in Mad Max Fury Road ahead of Tom Hardy. And that the only reason it didn't play out is because he couldn't travel. He wanted to stay home, which is obviously pretty detrimental to your ability to go film a movie, especially one that's being made in fucking Australia. But the dude, when I watched 8 Mile recently, and I didn't watch it last night, but recently, he's legit. Like, it's not like he's just going and playing himself. And like, dude, that would be hard a challenge in and of itself, playing yourself. But he is a legitimate actor surrounded by, like, Mekhi Phifer is Future in this film, and Eminem outacts him, I would argue. Michael Shannon plays the dude who went to high school with Eminem and is now fucking his mom, played by Kim Basinger, which is just like another, like he stands toe-to-toe with that dude in scenes, and Michael Shannon is one of the best living actors currently, IMO.
I thought Mekhi Phifer until right now, like literally right now, was a woman. The name, I'm thinking Michelle Pfeiffer, aren't I?
That is Michelle Pfeiffer that you're thinking of, but they are very close, and that is confusing. But Mekhi Phifer is the dude who plays Future in 8 Mile.
Like Future the rapper?
Not to be confused with Future the rapper now, which is like whoever picked the names for this movie, it's the one beef I have to pick with 8 Mile. They did a terrible job with the names.
I also have one more issue.
Yeah.
Wow. It was in my head. Oh, no. Okay. Now, you say Eminem, great rapper, right?
Right.
I can only think of 2 things he's ever been in. 8 Mile and one other movie. Can you name that movie? Or a movie that he's in?
I didn't even know he was ever in a second movie. I thought 8 Mile was it, and he hung it up.
He plays himself in this other movie.
Oh. Funny People. Is it Funny People?
Maybe, but that's not what I'm thinking of.
What are you thinking of?
We literally referenced it last episode, The Interview. He plays himself, and he comes out to James Franco, and James Franco does all those funny face
he's in
things.
3. So it's The Interview when he comes out as gay, and it's this shocking thing because James Franco is interviewing him live on his show or whatever, and it's really, really funny, right? He says that all of his like homophobic lyrics were suppressing his own gayness.
And he does a great job of like keeping a straight face for all that.
Yeah. But he was also in Funny People. At the end of it, he like but just one of the strangest movies I've ever seen, by the way.
Yeah,
where the first hour,
you're
like
very funny.
You're like, all right, this is kind of good. It's going to be about stand-up comedy. I like stand-up comedy. This is going to be interesting. And then it's like in the middle of it, what's his name? Apatow was like, actually, fuck that. Let's make it incredibly depressing and about divorce and how relationships are difficult to manage. It's like, what? The last hour and a half of the movie, by the way, it's like 3 hours long, is just sad.
It's not a funny
for
movie.
the most part.
You'd think with the name like Funny People.
Yeah, it was very misleading. Anyway, those are my thoughts on both 8 Mile, Eminem's performances as an actor, and movies where more people should have died. Also documentaries where more people should have died. Today's episode is also brought to you by Birddogs. Birddogs, making the most comfortable shorts in the world with the built-in underwear you know and love for living life and making love. It's like, why wear shorts with underwear when you can wear even better shorts with the built-in underwear, thus creating less laundry, thus saving the planet, thus making you a hero who is also better looking and more comfortable. Birddogs, you silly bastard. But did you know they make pants as well for the winter months when it's cold? Pants for work, pants for play, pants for golf. Their new joggers are next-level comfortable. Jared and I have harped on this for months now. They sent us a couple pairs each. They're phenomenal.
Ross, how does my ass look when I wear those joggers?
Oh, it pops, Jared. It pops. Almost too much junk in the trunk. I end up asking myself how you fit all that in them Birddogs joggers, Bone Man. And he never answers. He never tells me.
I just give him a kiss back.
Yeah, go check.
Right in the forehead.
Go check the new Birddogs joggers out on birddogs.com. Grab yourself a pair. I absolutely love mine. You can wear them to sleep, wake up, hit a workout, go to work. Nobody's going to fucking know. You might smell a little funny, but you'll look great. And what's more, for being an RBP listener, when you use the code RBP at checkout on birddogs.com, Birddogs is giving away free whistling footballs like the Nerf football you grew up with. But it's a Birddogs whistling football. You throw it through the air to your friend or to the specter that you're playing catch with, and it whistles.
I'm going to throw it to you right now.
Throw it to me right now, Jared. Yeah, do it. Wow. Look at that. We're not far enough for it to actually whistle, so we
that
have
was
to make it up, but
that was CGI.
But the Birddogs football is in my hand, and it's gorgeous. Go to birddogs.com, use the code RBP when you check out, and get yourself a free whistling football with your order of the most comfortable pants or shorts in the world, with the built-in underwear or without, your choice.
I like it with.
You got to get it with. You got to get it with. That is birddogs.com, code RBP. Back to you, Jared.
Grab your light, this is Stuff the Wikipedia when you're high.
Stuff the Wikipedia when you're
All right. Today's Stuff to Wikipedia when you're high is the Spacecraft Cemetery. Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
No, I'm going to assume it's a cemetery for seagulls?
Aptly named.
Oh.
It is a cemetery for spacecraft, known more formally as the South Pacific Oceanic Uninhabited Area, which is a terrifying label. It's a region in the southern Pacific Ocean east of New Zealand, where spacecraft that have reached the end of their usefulness are routinely crashed.
Like out of space?
Yes. So the area is roughly centered on Point Nemo, the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, the location furthest from any land.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
Yeah.
I've seen this and heard about this.
It's basically so nobody has to take responsibility.
Yes.
That's the reasoning.
The furthest away spot on Earth from any land.
Or any jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Right? A total of more than 263 spacecraft were disposed of in this area between 1971 and 2016 alone. By the way, the reason this is coming up now, the International Space Station, which has reached the end of its run, is planned on being crashed there for its retirement, which I didn't even realize was going to be a thing that occurred in our lifetime, that the International Space Station that I heard about so much as a kid is now nearing needs to be buried in the graveyard.
Well, how old is it?
I think it's pretty fucking old.
Because, imagine, I think we need to find, I need to
Space,
properly...
eats away at these things, right?
Yeah, that too, but also, imagine you get, let's say this thing, we need to look up the year here, because this is going to be really, really important to this conversation.
Yeah, it launched in 1998, November 20th, 1998.
If I'm in a 1998 car right now, I feel like I'm going to die.
Yeah, I think that's the reasoning. Technology has advanced so much.
Right?
Beyond where they were at in 1998 that you got to bring that puppy home and send a new one up there with all the stuff that Elon created or whatever.
And then you got to shoot the old ISS down to the bottom of the ocean where Peter Jackson is that who no, Michael Bay? Who's the
Titanic guy?
No, there is a
James Cameron.
James Cameron.
Yeah.
That fucker who just goes to the Marianas Trench. What's he doing to Marianas Trench?
Making Atlantis or Avatar 2.
See, I didn't know about this. Dan Regester told me. He's like, yeah, James Cameron has a submarine and he frequently does solo trips to Marianas Trench. What are you doing, James Cameron?
I don't know. He's getting the elixir of life down there.
Yeah.
And he's not telling any of
Something's
us.
fucked up.
So current considerations of the spacecraft cemetery include the environmental impact it creates on marine life within the South Pacific Ocean uninhibited region. Obviously, when you're thinking about this, yeah, they just crashed the space station right there and everything's fine. It's well, probably not, right? what about the fish and shit that live in that area? So this region is beyond legal jurisdiction of any country and therefore faces significantly less regulation. Currently, 2 treaties outline certain laws that can be applied to the spacecraft cemetery. The Outer Space Treaty, produced by the United Nations, which reflects on damages caused by spacecraft on opposing nations.
Which you would think that one came into play. We forgot about this. Nobody talked about this after it happened. Do you remember when China blew up a satellite?
Yes.
And it was just raining a satellite onto the Earth?
It's pretty mind-blowing. That actually makes me think of another movie where more people should die, and it's every Marvel movie ever, where literally the death count should be like tens and tens of millions because they're just blowing up cities nonstop.
I've got one. Star Wars. The stormtroopers can't hit a goddamn target to save their
they
lives.
Can't shoot for shit. Also, every James Bond movie. The same problem. The bad guys, the henchmen, they can't fucking shoot straight. James Bond is running around all willy-nilly with no bulletproof vest on or anything, and they're just like, pew, 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 pew. And that's the noise that they went with for both movies, actually, Star Wars and James Bond.
Also, it's not a movie, but Game of Thrones, there's certainly major characters who should have died. Bran. Should have died in episode 1.
Yeah, they really gave us that big surprise death at the end of season 1 for one of the main characters that I won't spoil. And then they really never did us justice in that regard ever again. Sad, very unfair. Marine pollution can be caused by spacecraft deposit into the cemetery due to the spillage of highly toxic rocket propellant called hydrazine, which is like, the first thing I'm wondering is like, well, don't y'all have fuel on these things? And if so, is the fuel just spilling into the ocean? Also,
what?
The other treaty that can be applied to the spacecraft cemetery is the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which reflects on general marine pollution. Other forms of space debris removal are being considered and produced in order to slow the exponential growth of space debris orbiting Earth due to the increased amount of space exploration. So one of the other things we hear about of late is that there are so many out-of-service satellites or like busted down old space stations or shit that just got abandoned or exploded or whatever that's just floating around the Earth at this point that it's almost like inevitably we're going to end up with one of those situations like we have in one of our oceans where it's just like a trash island, except it'll be in space.
What if we get trapped on Earth because of the satellites? Like we're ready to go to Mars, we're ready to colonize Mars, Earth's a hellhole, but everybody who tries to leave the atmosphere gets fucking owned by a satellite.
Satellite in my eyes, like a diamond in the sky. With 47% of re-entry mass coming from controlled re-entries, that's not a high enough percentage for me to feel comfortable. What the fuck? 53% of re-entry is coming from non-controlled re-entries?
So shit's just falling on Earth right now?
Damn satellites just crashing down all around us? Satellite. Chemical spillage poses a risk to the marine environment as a result of the 47% of re-entry mass coming from the controlled re-entries. Hydrazine, a widely used rocket propellant that is highly toxic to living organisms, likely partially survives during re-entry, which means it's crashing into the ocean in this spacecraft cemetery. Radioactive chemicals present in spacecraft are also a cause for concern in the industry. Yeah, those seem concerning. Mm-hmm. There are numerous domestic and international regulatory bodies intended to mitigate potential environmental damage caused by spacecraft pollution. The United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea is the international... Oh, we already touched on that. That first one, though, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, it defines pollution using 3 conditions. 1, the object must have been introduced into the environment by man. 2, the object contains substances. And 3, the object must be detrimental to living organisms. Okay.
I want to know what the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea has to say about the implication. Because that takes place on the sea.
Because of the implication. Yeah.
It takes place on the open ocean.
Apparently, it's difficult to know how much of a substance remains after it enters the atmosphere. The potential environmental risk of certain spacecraft entering the cemetery may be unknown, leaving much of the treaty up for interpretation, meaning that nobody does dick about any of this. We just crash our spaceships and crafts into this fucking area. Additionally, the EPA provides protocols on marine pollution, declaring the responsibility for pollution mitigation to those who have contributed to it, and addresses regional cooperation between nations in order to find the least harmful solutions to debris disposal. All of those words put together tell me that this is a thing we really don't know what to do about, right? Like,
we have so much room, though, at the bottom of the ocean. Like,
yeah, we do, as the humans, but whatever's down there has got to be really fucking pissed off that we're crashing, like, Apollo 26 into their living room.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what else to do with it.
And what if it's that, what was that movie They came out, and like the image was like a boat, and under the boat there was this shadow of this massive space, or like
It was a shark, right?
was it a shark? The
Jaws?
the Meg?
The Meg? The Meg?
I don't know.
No, it's definitely not the Meg. It might have been the Meg. It was the Meg. Wow.
Please clap.
Back to you, Jared.
Fuck.
That's that is definitely one of them, and yeah, it looks like it's a massive shark underneath. Is this a Jason Statham movie? It is.
I believe
it
Meg
is.
is short for Megalodon.
Oh,
Now that I think about it.
fun stuff. Weird though. To me, it's like, why don't we just let the stuff that's in space continue to float aimlessly out in space? Why crash it back down into our own fucking planet?
What if it hits another satellite or something?
That seems like space problem though. Why we make it an Earth problem? I don't
mean,
understand.
Is that how you're segmenting out your own reality now? Stuff is either taking place on Earth or in space, and
Yes.
they're not related at all?
They're not in any way, shape, or form connected in my mind. And that's our stuff to Wikipedia when you're high for the day. Also, it turns out 2 movies are out now. One starring Channing Tatum, just called Dog, and one nominated for more Academy Awards than any other film this year, called The Power of the Dog. And you tell me we aren't in control of the zeitgeist. You tell me that right now, listener. We are. The Year of the Dog rolls on, and since we've announced it, look at this. Channing Tatum dog movie. Also, Bruce and Bella got haircuts.
They look very nice.
Got all 4 of mine bathed and groomed yesterday. They look like little puppies again, Bruce and Bella. It's ridiculously cute, like little stuffed animals with bare booties, because they don't have tails, my dogs. They've got those real little stubs, you know, they're toy Australian Shepherds.
My dog too.
Oh, yeah.
Doc tail.
They look like they have little bear butts when they're running
Yeah.
around, like a BEAR, like not bear, like
You don't shave your
Dude.
dog's butt.
no, but like a big bear.
My dog also got groomed.
Big bear.
We have
Really?
all the dogs are groomed right now.
We got to get Millie over here for a photo op soon
Oh,
then,
yeah.
for the Year of the Dog.
Oh, yeah.
Also, Ricky's looking for some actual photos of our dogs to make some Year of the Dog merch for everybody in the RBP gang, and that would be helpful for that
That would be.
as well.
Continue to send in photos of your dog.
Yes, please keep them coming. The best way to do that would be to put it in your Instagram story and tag us at the Ross Bolen Podcast and write Year of the Dog, and then we will share it. A lot of people have been DMing us as well. That's totally fine, I guess, if you don't want to put it up in your own story, but that is the preferred method. Put a picture up of your dog or dogs in your Instagram story at the Ross Bolen Podcast, Year of the Dog, and we will share those photos on our Instagram feed. Then you'll pick up more followers or whatever. People will be like, send me more pictures of your dog or something like that.
Maybe you're going to meet your husband or wife.
Because they'll think your dog is so cute and fetching that they'll just be so taken with you that, oh my God, whoever owns this dog has to be my soulmate. And if you're not tagging us at the Ross Bolen Podcast in your Instagram story today with photos of your furry friends, who knows what kind of love you could be missing out on. We just had Valentine's Day. If you spent it alone, I'd go right now to your Instagram and put up a picture of your dog or dogs and at the Ross Bolen Podcast with Year of the Dog. What else? Oh, DM us on Instagram. Do not fucking Snapchat me anymore. I'm done. I can't check it anymore. I'm done. I deleted the app. I'm out. No more Snapchats. Stop sending me Snapchats. If you want to send me a license plate or a dog photo or whatever RBP meme or anything else, Instagram is the best way, but I also check Twitter. So let's stick with those if we could. Speaking of the merch,
Still can't believe you're on Snapchat. Like, I can't believe you've been on Snapchat until right now.
I mean, you got to imagine, it's like probably 30,000 photos of license plates that I've gotten out of there over the years. That was like 90% of the stuff, but also shopping carts and dog photos and all the other weird shit that we've gotten into here. It's Chipotle napkins. You don't know how many crimes I've watched committed inside of Chipotle's because people were filming them and then sending me the Snapchat of them like running out with the whole napkin container or stealing the fucking fountain machine with the drinks in it. And I'm just like, what the shit, man? How are y'all even pulling this off?
Larceny.
Yeah, it's insane. If you get merch from bolenmedia.com/shop, when it comes in, tag us in that too. Add us on Instagram or DM us a photo of you wearing it. We'll put that up as well. It means a lot to us, helps us grow the show, helps us get more people to be aware that we have merch at bolenmedia.com/shop. So do that today. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram at The Ross Bolen Podcast, on Twitter at Ross Bolen Pod. Follow Mr. Jared Borislow at Jared Borislow on Twitter and Instagram, and listen to the Formula Bone F1 show, available wherever you listen to RBP. A new episode came out this week, Jared.
Came out yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yep, there was a big F1 commission meeting, had some big implications for some races.
If you're an F1 fan, you will love Formula Bone. He has over 80,000 followers on TikTok already. At Formula Bone. Follow on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Listen to the podcast wherever you listen to RBP. Follow me, Ross Bolen, at WR Bolen on Twitter and Instagram, and hit me with those photos of your stuff. not your downstairs
What?
stuff. Your dogs and cats and.
Okay, no cats.
I'm just gonna move on. Then thanks for being us. Thanks for being us today. Thank you for being us today.
We can say thank you for being us if somebody does make that AI episode.
I'm thanking us, not the listeners. I'm thanking you and I for being us. Thank us for being us today.
You're welcome.
Jared and I will be back on Monday for another episode of RBP, but before then, we'll be on patreon.com/Ross Bolen Podcast with another exclusive ad-free episode for our supporters on Patreon, where recently I dropped a full 14-picture gallery. It's the Bill Chungus photo gallery.
I cried laughing at this.
It is unbelievable how different I look, much like Scarface in this Kanye West documentary, when I was Bill Chungus compared to 2022 Ross Bolen or Straight Edge Bill or Ron Bowler or whatever you want to call me. But if you've only seen like one or two of those photos of Bill Chungus, there's always been like one or two circulating on Twitter. Man, I found a lot of gold, some of which is truly horrifying for me to look at. And I splattered it up there to say thank you to everybody on Patreon for supporting our show and making sure that Jared and I get to do our show and that it continues to grow and we can grow our company, Bolen Media. So thank you to everybody on Patreon. Enjoy your Bill Chungus photo gallery. I've put out 2 mental health minisodes in February so far, and you've got 2 more coming in February. The first 2 are about my journey getting off of SSRIs, otherwise known as antidepressants, and then I do marriage and relationship advice in the second one as it pertains to having a lot of people around me who are either getting married or engaged, or like my little brother who's engaged. I'm going to be his best man towards the end of the year. And me and him got to talking a lot when he was in town. It brought up a lot of stuff that I had learned through therapy, my own divorce, etc. And I share my input on marriage, and not just marriage, but relationships in general. It applies to friendships and business as well. So get on patreon.com/Ross Bolen Podcast today. Support the podcast with a minimum pledge of just $5 monthly to get in the RBP gang tier, or if you want those mental health minisodes and the extra stuff that comes with the Enforcer or OG tiers, you can get in those as well. Until next time, peace be with you, and also with you.